Yesterday, it was the turn of President Joe Biden to show solidarity with auto workers and their unions in the context of their ongoing strike. Well, today, it was the turn of his rival and predecessor, Donald Trump, who's addressing employees at a car plant just outside Detroit. Well, Trump has once again opted to skip tonight's televised debate for the Republican Party's presidential primary. And one of the messages he's expected to deliver, a warning that President Biden's plans to further embrace electric vehicles could cost people their jobs there in the Rust Belt. Well, let's get more now. We're joined by Todd Belt, who's a professor and director of political management at George Washington University. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor. Just tell us, first of all, why is Michigan such a focus for Biden and Trump at this particular moment?
Great to be with you again. Thanks for having me. Michigan is really the keystone state that you need to win, or one of a few that you need to win the presidency. It's obvious that by skipping the debate tonight, that former President Trump is really casting all of his campaign into the general election, and he really wants to retake some of those voters that he lost in 2020. Middle-class Joe Biden took away some of those white working-class voters that Trump was able to use to get to the presidency in 2016 in the key states of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Joe Biden won them back in 2020, and now Trump is out there to get them again.
OK, so we've got this strike underway by auto workers. Is it any closer to coming to an end? And what are the unions demanding there?
Yeah, my understanding is they're still pretty far away, but the unions have scheduled strikes that are not going to hit the auto workers all at once. They're more staggered. The auto workers are asking for a pretty significant increase in salary, and they're also looking to unify salaries across the board. Back in 2007, when they made their last deal with the auto industry was in the middle of a real downturn, and that was back when we had the whole problem with the financial crisis and everything like that, which hit the auto industry tremendously hard. Workers were asked to take a lot of cuts, and they put together a program where new workers were making much less than the older workers, and the workers want to reinstate that and to recoup some of the losses that they've taken now that the auto industry is doing really well.
And while Donald Trump is there trying to convince auto workers there in Michigan that they should vote for him and that he's their man, I mean, they could point to his time in office, couldn't they, and point out that he tended to side with the employer rather than the employee. Do you think that's something that they're likely to challenge him on?
Well, Donald Trump came to office promising to restore the industrial base of America. He said, we're going to rebuild those factories and we're going to rebuild them here. And that didn't occur during his presidency. But I think that what Donald Trump will be focusing on predominantly is China, and saying that your jobs are going to go away to China, particularly as the movement in vehicles moves more towards electric vehicles, which more of the design and the creation of the parts is going to be done in China, and even fewer people will be needed for final assembly.
Yeah, and that's likely to strike a chord, isn't it? Because the Biden administration has really embraced electric vehicles. And so we can assume, therefore, that the former President Donald Trump will be telling those he addresses that if you don't vote for me and Biden has another term, more electric vehicles, fewer jobs.
That's right. And one of the things that Donald Trump and Joe Biden have is this alternative view of the future for those workers. Donald Trump wants to keep those jobs as they are. And Joe Biden has embraced this policy he calls Bidenomics, where he wants to retrain workers for the future jobs and to bring back industry, but also to reorganize industry for more high-tech jobs here in the United States that are going elsewhere. And we have to see whether or not these auto workers really want a future where they might have to be retrained and get some other more high-skilled jobs, or if they want a president in there who might bring back some protectionism just to keep those jobs.
And just lastly, Professor, I mean, Donald Trump's been in the headlines quite a bit in the last 24 hours. And I know this is slightly off topic for you, but I mean, do you think that the latest legal setbacks are likely to damage his electoral prospects? And do you think that that's slightly going to be the elephant in the room, even if it's a very large room, a car plant that he's addressing these workers in, and something that's likely to overshadow his visit?
I don't think so. Not in the short run, at least. Everybody knows who Donald Trump is, and their ideas of him are pretty well set in stone from, the 4 years of him being in office, and of course him being a very vocal person out of office. So I don't think it's going to make that much of a change. He did have, of course, the legal setback yesterday and the ruling going against him. But we found that whenever he's indicted or things happen, his base really rallies behind him. And at least in the short run, his legal problems actually allow him to say that I am a victim and they're coming after me because they can't get to you. These are the messages he puts out, which will resonate with Republican voters. But I think the issue in Georgia, that case is the one to look at, where there is that smoking gun of him looking for more votes. That could really rile up some independent voters against him when we get to the general election. But in the short term, I don't think so.
Okay, well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Professor Todd Belt, thank you for being with us here on France 24.